And back to this story now. Mia Roux is Miss South Africa 2024. She was crowned in Pretoria last night, making history by becoming the first hearing-impaired winner. Communications Director at the Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, Cassius Selala, joins me now for this conversation. Cassius, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Just how historic and pivotal a moment is those intersectionalities of being a woman, being young, but also being someone with living a disability speaks directly to the core of the Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities. She now is quite literally a national ambassador. In what ways do you hope to work with the Miss South Africa organization and with Mia Roux very specifically to carry these messages forward?
Well, thank you very much to the viewers, and also pass our congratulatory message to Ms. Roux. The Constitution of South Africa, especially Chapter 2, provides protection of people with disabilities, that their rights must be protected like any other citizen. And as a government, we are saying people living with disabilities have equal rights like any other able person, and therefore need to be protected because of their own disadvantage they found themselves in. And working with multiple stakeholders will assist us to ensure that the message of protecting rights of persons with disabilities finds resonance in every corner, every province and every municipality. So we're more than determined to advocate and mainstream the rights of persons with disabilities messages as enshrined in our democratic principles as well as the Constitution.
I don't know to what extent the department supports pageants as a platform through which such advocacy can happen, but is it in the hope of the department that this opens the door for Miss South Africa to consider more people with disabilities in the competition and with varied disabilities as contestants in the competition?
In our effort for mainstreaming and advocacy, that it's a critical point you're raising, that it should not be limited to particular individuals. We need to ensure that working with stakeholders, multiple stakeholders, of course, advocate for such kind of partnerships, but also to say that women who are in the rural areas living with disabilities, there are multiple opportunities that they can delve into, including pageants, sports, and many other opportunities that this country is providing for young people as well as women in particular. Case in point, you remember Kgotatso Montjana, who recently won the Wimbledon with the wheelchair bound, but she demonstrated her skills, her zeal, to really demonstrate the fact that because I'm unable to perform certain duties, that does not make me an unable person. She is still able to do that. So with the hearing facilities that Miss South Africa should be provided with as part of the recommendations of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act provided in South Africa, that adequate resources must be provided to people living with disabilities, but also reasonable accommodation is a key element that must be advocated for. You can agree with me that most of our houses do not comply with what is required should one become disabled due to unforeseen circumstances. So those are some of the messages we would really encourage Miss South Africa to carry forward, as now she's the ambassador for South Africa, but also those living with disabilities that are looking for hope from what she has acquired.
Yeah, just a very superfluous question here. To what extent does the department support the Miss South Africa pageant?
As I've said, we're more than willing to work with stakeholders, and we are not only limited to particular creed or kind of stakeholders. If this privately owned institution leading Miss South Africa is willing to partner with our department, we are more than happy to work with them to advance our message of rights of persons with disabilities, but also encouraging South Africans to respect them and make sure that they are well looked after and are taken care of.
Yeah. I don't know if you watched the pageant, but at certain points, Mia Roux had a sign language interpreter, which I think that the symbolism of is incredibly important, given that South Africa in 2022 had recognized and signed into law sign language as an official language in South Africa, which was an incredibly important step forward. Has the department, along with various other stakeholders, done any things programmatically since then for the advancement and proliferation of sign language, making it a lot more accessible to teach, to learn, and to communicate in?
It is a 12th language officially declared by the president, and it's our endeavor also to say we are advocating for all stakeholders, private sector, public sector, and even service point, that they must make sure that there is adherence to sign language interpretation services provided, particularly for those who are not able to adequately express themselves.
Yeah.
And having that, it's really a cherry on top that we're beginning to see stride, particularly in public outreach programs of government, that we have a provision of sign language interpretation. And also we must commend SABC for having sign language interpretation in their own news broadcasting. But that should not only be limited to those areas. Like I've already alluded that we are not only in urban areas. We have people in the rural areas who are a deaf community. Some of them don't have that services. And we encourage municipalities, we encourage service point department to really ensure that sign language is provided.
Just a last question, Cassius. Will the department and the minister be inviting Mayor Roux for a celebration?
We wish to have a coffee with her and take it forward to advance the message of the rights of persons with disabilities.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. That is the spokesperson of the Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, Cassius Selala.